What's up guys, I hope everything is Gucci today, okay? This video right here is going to be about XVM and measuring skill in World of Tanks. But before we get into all that, I just thought I'd quickly go over the gameplay that's going to be running in the background. So as you can see, this is a game in my motion on the map Prokhorovka, where I'm pretty much just shooting fish in a barrel, so nothing spectacular here right here. Don't focus too much on the gameplay though, since this video is going to be about something else. So, first of all, there are some things we need to address in order for this discussion to make sense. Let's start with the most basic and e-penis arousing thing that we have. Skill. Now, I've been thinking about a way to define skill in World of Tanks, and I think I've found some valid points. I'm going to be looking at this in regards to doing what you can to affect your team's chances of winning. Now, there are a few things you need to keep in mind here. For example, that different tanks have different roles to play that affects the result of the battle to a varying degree. To make my point here more apparent, I would like you to think of it as a scale, since you're not either good or bad, and there are different shades in between. Being at the absolute top of this scale would mean that you are a perfect player who never makes any mistakes whatsoever, while being at the bottom would mean that you do nothing right. I do think everyone has room for improvement and that nobody's actually 100% perfect, but everyone fits into this scale somewhere. Okay, so now that we've talked about skill, let's talk about the tool that we have at our disposal for measuring our performance in the game. XVM.
What is XVM?
XVM is pretty much a modification that you can download that keeps track of yours and other players' statistics. These statistics are shown next to players' names in the scoreboard in the shape of number of played battles, WN8 and win rate.
You fucking XVM whore, stats don't mean shit.
If you could actually argue why stats don't mean anything, go right ahead. The way I see it, they surely tell you something, as long as you know what values that are being measured and you are not trying to draw any far-fetched conclusions from them.
You fucking idiot. WN8 can be padded by sniping at the red line for damage, so it's completely useless. The reason I have bad stats is because of stupid teams and bad RNG.
Yeah, right mate, like you're the only one with bad teams and having to deal with RNG. Let's talk about WN8 for starters and what it actually measures. Generally, what you hear from people is that WN8 is only based on the average damage you deal in your tanks in comparison to other players. Just to make it more obvious, you could say that a player with a higher WN8 rating than someone else deals a higher average amount of damage than that person. Looking at this post about what factors comes into the WN8 calculation, it seems to be about more than just damage. But I'm not going to get any deeper into this, since for one, I don't think it's really that relevant, and you can pause the video here and give it a read if you're interested.
So what flaws does using WN8 as a measurement of skill have?
You could say that you really don't need to be trying to win in order to achieve a high WN8 rating, which I guess is true, but the thing is, even if a statistic like this overlooks some factors, they still tell you something, especially if you compare them to other statistics. For example, looking at the correlation between WN8 and win rate. What this could tell you is whether or not the accumulated damage and kills have been useful for your team. If a player is doing something right, then it's going to show in WN8 and a corresponding win rate. If there is an imbalance, on the other hand, like a low WN8 and a high win rate, one could argue that a player is boosted by better players, or at least has been at an earlier stage. We gotta remember that stats take a while to adjust if you have a lot of played battles.
You put too much faith in WN8 as a value. There are more things that come into winning a game than doing a lot of damage and getting a lot of kills.
I agree that there are more things that factor into winning the game than damage and kills, but let's be realistic. More often than not, the game ends before one team gets capped, so getting damage and killing enemy tanks aren't going to be doing your team any disfavors. You could say that other things have an effect on the battle as well. For instance, tanking damage for your team, having map presence, and assisted damage in form of spotting and tracking. Agree, but I can't see why one thing has to exclude the other, you know. I have not seen a player reasoning like this actually have a high win rate, which makes the point they're trying to make in their defense for having bad WN8 completely worthless. WN8 isn't some magical number that you achieve for just being good at the game. You also have to put in effort to get it. To make my point here clear, you could imagine two similarly skilled players in the same battle, but in different universes. Okay, so imagine the team is losing and both of them makes the assessment that it's time to accept the fact that there's nothing they can do to change that at this point. One of them says fuck it and goes and gets himself killed so that he can go to garage and play another tank. The other one decides to stay and farm some damage before they lose. The one who decided to stay and farm damage will as a result get a higher WN8 rating for said battle than the one who decided to quit. I would therefore argue that WN8 can't be solely looked at as an indicator of skill, but instead I think of it as more as an indicator of effort. It does, however, require a good player to know how to get good stats, but on the other hand, it does not require a bad player to have bad stats, even if that's true in most cases.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I am really good, but I just don't put any effort in it because I play for fun.
So wait, so you mean having fun, in your opinion, is losing 50% of the battles you play and not even carrying your own weight in terms of damage? If you're saying you are really good, then show us, play a game and put all your skill to use, and I might change my opinion about you.
But people can have a good recent WN8 that doesn't show up yet on his overall. XVM does not show this.
This is true, and you could, for that sake, tab out and go to one of the websites that show you player statistics if you're interested. The way I look at statistics is that the more information we get, the better the assessment of a player's skill we can make. For this reason, I like using Aslane's XVM mod because it gives me more in-game information about players' performances. It doesn't only tell me how a player performs on average, but more importantly, how a player performs in the currently played vehicle. It gives me his win rate in said tank and the average damage in relation to its hit points. A value of 1 here would mean that the player's average damage in the tank corresponds with the hit points of the vehicle. One way of looking at this value is whether or not a player on average is carrying his own weight in said tank. A value below 1 would, with this way of looking at it, mean that he is not, and a value above 1 would mean that he is, in fact, starting to pull other people's weight as well. My way of using XVM is not to clearly state whether or not a player is good or bad, but more of a way to assess what to expect from someone, even if I think that more often than not bad stats equals a bad player, and vice versa. Okay guys, so these were my 2 cents on the topic, and I hope it made any sense. If you have something to add, or if there was any point that I made during this video that you don't agree with, please let me know in the comments so we can get a nice constructive discussion going maybe. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow my Twitch page. I will see you guys later. Peace.